Welcome to the Inspiring Tech Leaders podcast with me, Dave Roberts. This week, my special guest is Paul Boardman, who is the Group IT Director at Northwood. Paul has also held IT Director roles for Georgia Pacific and SCA Hygiene Products during his career. He is passionate about delivery and focusing on the soft skills of leadership and business engagement. Paul has an MBA from the Open University and has been included in the CIO 100 for the last 3 years, which recognises the most transformative IT leaders in the UK. It's great to have you with us here today, Paul.
Pleasure, Dave. Really pleasurable to get a chance to speak to you. Hopefully give your listeners an insight into how I think about technology contribution to organisations and people's lives.
So we'll start off by just getting a bit of background to, how did you start your career in IT? And was it the path that you always wanted to follow?
Yeah, great question. I actually stumbled into IT in the early 90s. I was actually working in an administration role for the post office at one of their distribution centres in Manchester. And for your listeners, in case you cannot get where I'm from, my accent should give it away. I was born and brought up in the northwest of England. Anyway, at the post office at the time, computer usage was in its infancy. A few computers, I think it was Windows 3.1, loads of paper-based processes. I mean, at the time, they probably had 20,000 post offices sending bits of paper in, bits of card in, reporting figures and numbers. And I was part of the administration of processing all this paperwork. I was in my 20s at the time, started to challenge the way they did a few things. I started to improve a few of the admin processes. And really, looking back, I did this through SuperCalc. Yeah, I think it was SuperCalc 5, so way before the Office 365 and the advances of all Excel. And in essence, I sort of took a 5-day job down to around about 2.5-day job, just through having some element of input on a screen. So one thing led to another. So appreciate admin role. I was then exposed to the sort of project lifestyle, which I'm assuming a lot of people in tech got into sort of their careers through projects. And I was asked to work on an SAP project in London. And at the time, probably still in my early 20s, spent a good year and a bit away from home. I was exposed to and worked with some great people and some great experiences in London in terms of the project environment, working with consultancies, all different levels of the business. And I'd really come in as a sort of end user. And I think it was probably at this point my passion for sort of improving processes and looking at things from the tech consumer's point of view made me sort of go down a technology career path. And let me be really clear, certainly not in a technical domain. I sort of went down the road of more process and the sort of leadership style. Mm-hmm. So fast forward 25 years, continue to do the same really, learn a lot, continue to learn a lot, met some great people, worked for some great companies. You mentioned a few of them in your intro, and I've worked with some amazing talent, and it's really something I'm quite passionate about in terms of the process improvements. And you only need to look how technology has advanced over the last sort of 10 years, and there's so much opportunity for the IT community to add value to the organization. And I would encourage anybody involved in technology or starting their journey is just look at the opportunities or problems from a consumer's perspective. I mean, just looking at how technology now can add value, it just sort of gives you and the team so much satisfaction. So I just stumbled across it really, and then still doing it.
So you're at Northwood at the moment. So tell me a little bit more about the role that you do at Northwood and the types of products that you produce.
Yeah, so just brief intro to Northwood then, and then I'll just talk a bit about the role. So Northwood is a privately owned group of companies that provide predominantly paper-based products to what we call the away from home market. So hotels, retail sector, hospitality sector. So whenever you see sort of the blue rolls or the toilet rolls in hotels, likely that it's been manufactured and supplied through our network. And we also have a division through the retail market, through the major retailers for some of their own branded products through. So context-wise, we have 11 sites across 2 countries. We produce around 500,000 toilet rolls every day. Just put that into context. Yeah, we recycle over 100,000 tons of waste paper every year. And we sell around 15 million cases per year. So that's an awful lot of paper going into the network. And I often joke about my role. And for those that know me, I always sort of talk about toilet roll and how can you digitalize toilet roll production.
I know I've seen you a few times speak, and when you get up to talk, there's a toilet roll in your hand, which is a great icebreaker. So
it is, and I've used that as an anchor point, just to sort of try and set the scene, because it's an everyday product that everybody uses. It's not an iPhone or anything like that. It's a toilet roll. So I joke about that, but really it goes beyond that. I mean, my prime role is, like every IT leader, we want to try and add value to the organization we work for through effective use of technology. I'm really fortunate in my position that I sit on the leadership teams for both our business divisions, and really the heart of my role is to make sure that technology is deployed and more importantly used effectively across all our core processes. So again, we're a manufacturing organization, so we have paper machines, which are huge assets producing our paper, right the way through to supporting our sales teams through sales analytics. And again, quite a traditional manufacturing organization and quite a traditional value chain. So we go for everything from order management through to production, finance, etc. And I just try and make people's lives a bit easier. I'm quite hands-on, and you will probably often see me at our production facilities speaking to users of all our technology and systems. Again, you probably from the intro picked up, I'm quite passionate about project delivery. So I'm always getting involved in projects. I'm always trying to make sure that they're improving something. I'm not saying it's all plain sailing, but I do have a bit of a passion around project delivery. And really, that's pretty much my role. It's like add value, manage the risks, try and make sure that IT is used effectively, and I try and continue to do that throughout my career.
So how is technology adding value to that manufacturing and supply process though?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, like many manufacturing organizations, we have a diverse portfolio of technology and processes of varying ages. So for those in the manufacturing sector, we can have some assets that are 30 plus years old that have not really been able to take advantage of all the latest tech. So my team and I, we get involved in all aspects of that value chain, as I said. So everything from production, HR, finance, sales, support, etc. But if I split the two, if I just briefly talk around manufacturing and then talk a bit around supply chain, I'll give an insight into some of the challenges and what we've been focusing on here in Northwood. So for manufacturing, you've got to appreciate large capital intensive machines, producing lots of paper, high volume assets that need to be up 24/7, 365 days a year. And my team have worked on a variety of initiatives to support our manufacturing teams. And a couple of examples really of what we've been doing. I mean, heart of my strategy at the moment is trying to make everything easier for our operations. So looking at applications that can really add value. So we've just, a couple of years ago, we introduced a cloud-based maintenance system. So most of our sites now are using that to improve the asset performance and reliability. So it's good to see our engineering teams, when I walk around, they're using the mobile assets, they're recording all the data points, and we're really just trying to make sure that our machines are up, they're running, they're producing, and they're reliable. And then a big part of my journey at Northwood is I've been modernising. I don't want to talk too much around ERP, but obviously it's been a big part of my career is we've modernised the ERP over the last few years to take advantage of some of the more modern processes embedded in the ERP nowadays. And from the manufacturing side, we're just trying to really make it easier for production teams to plan, to record, check production, and anywhere where we can automate, either through machine automation or mobilizing some of our processes. Again, very traditional manufacturing. It's just trying to make everything flow correctly. And then the bit that we've been sort of experimenting with over the last sort of 12 months is how do we improve our analytics and how do we improve some of the manufacturing performance. And I'll talk a bit around the sort of new technologies. Yeah, really trying to make sure the information's there for our manufacturing teams to do the job correctly. What we found is we call it the historian side, is we've got to have a strong foundation. So actually capturing the data for us in the first instance has been one of the key priorities. Obviously, we've got a lot of old assets there. So how do you improve the data capture there? So in one of our plants, we've just invested quite heavily, making sure we've got up-to-date sensors. We've put in a new historian to capture the data in more real time, and then we're trying to flip that to say, all right, we can look at historical trends, we can do all the traditional things like center lining and flow through analysis, but now we're trying to use some of our engineering team and some of our graduates to sort of really help us understand how can tech advance some of these things, either through and again, I'm trying not to be too cliche, but the machine learning AI side is really how can we start to use the compute power to look for something beyond what our operators know. On the supply chain, really, like I said, we're high volume, extremely competitive market. And for the last few years, we've been trying to make sure our supply chain is as efficient as possible. So alongside our new cloud-based ERP, we've introduced new warehouse management systems. We've introduced new transport management systems, again, all cloud-based, to really take advantage of these modern scalable platforms that are relatively easy to set up and deploy. And I'll caveat that very strongly with outside the normal change management and adoption challenges, but really just trying to give our, if it starts from our demand side, our planning side, is trying to make their life easier, predominantly just providing information, and then making sure when we move into the execution side, we're being as slick as possible. So we automate from our palletizers, we're scanning everything into our warehouse, we're tracking and tracing everything, our transport's being optimized, and then really, just trying to keep our service levels at a high level. So that's how some of the things we're doing in the manufacturing and supply side.
You mentioned challenges there. So what are those main challenges that you face in your position today, and how do you think technology has disrupted the organization?
Yeah, so outside of the obvious disruption that COVID has brought us, which, to be fair, our employees have adapted to brilliantly, as most organizations have, we have to, in this line of business, be really efficient in what we do. Like I said, it's capital intensive, it's high volume, and an extremely competitive marketplace. And we just cannot afford to fall behind in process efficiency and making sure our employees are equipped to do their job efficiently and give them the right information and tools to make decisions quickly. So to this end, we've moved most of our core processes. Now, obviously, we could probably spend hours talking around what is our core process, but we moved most of our core processes to cloud-based applications, which has allowed my team to really focus on process efficiency, collaboration, and the analytical side without the huge overhead of managing internal infrastructure. But despite all that technology and all the new opportunities that can disrupt, I think one of the sort of thing I'm quite passionate about, and this will come across hopefully in all the podcast, is the basics still have to be done flawlessly. I can't stress this enough, and it's a huge challenge when you're adopting technology. If you haven't got the right solid, secure foundation and real engagement at all levels, then we just miss, as IT leaders, we just miss a huge opportunity to add value. And in a lot of cases, if you get the foundation wrong, we'll just destroy value and mess it up, and then it sort of ruins the reputation of the technology teams, and we just don't get the value from it. So there's now worse, and apologies for that northernism there, than a poorly designed, executed process or an application that keeps fail. So really for me is when you're adopting new technologies, just don't forget the basics of good solid foundations, reliability, making sure that it's designed securely, and we're really thinking through what this means. I can't do a podcast in this era without just quickly going back to COVID, because I'm sure it's faced a challenge for a lot of organisations, and like many organisations, we've had to adapt how we work. And if you just park the work at home components, one of the challenges we've had is I move at pace, and my teams deliver at pace, and we've got a pretty good reputation of delivering fast and successfully. But when you're doing this remotely through Teams or other collaboration suites, we've had to adapt quite quickly. And to be fair, we've managed to continue our delivery plans from last year into this year, but it is a challenge when you can't look people in the eyes, you can't do all the workshopping as you've been used to. So it's been a tough challenge. But just to summarize, the technology challenges are really that, again, make sure you got the foundations and just focus on good engagement, and making sure we really understand what we're trying to achieve.
Absolutely agree. And you mentioned there about having a good security foundation. So how do you go about ensuring that the organization remains efficient and reliable, but also at the same time very secure?
So great question again. You've probably picked up by now, and keep reiterating, I'm a firm believer in solid foundations being in place for running any part of technology. So for existing services, the operational side, just making sure we've got robust processes and solutions that are in place. So the continuous monitoring of the environment. Some things are a given. Security for one, absolutely has to be considered. Good basics, again, good basic housekeeping, all the patching, monitoring, and responding, all need to be designed into our operational running of our processes. I mean, one thing, again, I'm quite passionate with our infrastructure teams is making sure that they're very close to our application teams to make sure that they're all reliable, they're up and they're secure. And again, just to be consistent around my passion for the sort of looking at it from a end user perspective is just seek feedback from consumers. I mean, at times what we think in IT is acceptable may cause some real problems for our workforce. I mean, again, there's nothing worse than poor network performance during a key virtual meeting in these days, or more importantly for us is if we design a process poorly or that's not reliable, typically people will tend to bypass that process. Could be saying the system's too slow, it keeps crashing, so they'll just go and find out another way of doing things, or even worse, they'll just go and stop using it altogether, and that destroys value in my opinion. For new services, Dave, I mean, again, it goes back to the design principles, is really security, the reliability, they need to be considered at the very start. I've been involved in a number of projects early on in my career where security come in at the end. Really get it at the start of the process and ensure it's an absolute key
Security by design.
Of the design.
Yeah.
I've seen it too many times where it's just considered at the very end, and then all the architecture's not been considered, and all of a sudden then you've got performance issues, gaps in the process, gaps in the security. So security absolutely should be at the heart of all our thinking, not just the IT teams. I mean, we invest a huge amount of time in ensuring our users understand the risks we face every day. I mean, we run monthly education briefs at all levels. We're continuing monitoring our security position. I mean, I'll be honest with you, this is the one that scares me, Dave. Like probably most leaders, I don't want to be waking up to be the next victim of a cyber attack. Yeah. But it's that common message again, is do the basics right, leverage new tech where appropriate, and then just continually educate on the security and the efficiency. So that's my view there.
But when you're going about thinking about creating that culture of innovation, how do you even start with that? And what have you found that really works?
Yeah, I'd like to say I have an easy answer for this one, Dave, but I think
no one does.
No, exactly. But and I'm trying not to be too cliche here, but I think it starts with, in my opinion, just creating that right environment and attitude to innovation. I mean, we can debate what innovation means, but really, you've just got to try and create an environment. I mean, one of Northwood's guiding principles is entrepreneurship. I mean, we're a private-owned company. They are quite keen on experiments. They want to try and add value. They want to be honest, they want to try and make money. So we actively encourage the teams to look for opportunities for improvement. So what's worked for me so far, and again, trying not to be too cliche here, but really start really small. That cliche of fail fast mentality to test ideas is absolutely key. Listen out for the business problems, challenges. I mean, get your teams together with the relevant people from the operations. Look at how technology can improve an outcome.
I suppose there's lots of different types of innovation as well. So it doesn't have to be radical innovation. It can be incremental innovation. There's lots of different ways to approach that challenge within any organization.
Yeah, and my joking side would come up again, because this is where you always this is where you would lift the toilet roll up to the audience. and say a lot of people fall into the trap of how can we do a complete digital transformation of the toilet roll, and it's not. I think you're right. For us, it's how can I improve an outcome? How can I improve some of our processes? So it's so broad, our setup and processes, that we want to just sort of continually improve and look for ways we can, innovate through technology to improve an outcome. And a couple of small examples for the listeners, really. I mean, and I'll give you two extremes of what we would class as innovation, and how we're thinking about this, and how it's influenced some of the outcomes. So again, the temptation in manufacturing, right? And we talked about it earlier around data collection and analytics, right? I could easily sit here and say, right, let's innovate, let's do some AI, let's do some machine learning on our manufacturing processes. So probably around 18 months ago, we set off with that as an idea to say, could we look at one specific asset? Could we do something around machine learning? Could it give us some more insight into our process that our long-standing employees couldn't do? Again, we just secured some funding to do an experiment. We worked with a number of external knowledgeable people, and our experiment really just turned into, and go back to this again, it highlighted so many, I don't want to say problems, but we identified a number of foundational areas that needed to be addressed before we could take that next step in innovation. So capturing data, modernizing some of the assets, putting more data points in. And we employed a graduate in one of our mills who's now got the basis of a relatively good information set, and we're now just testing a load of hypotheses around our production efficiencies. So yeah, one bit we started as let's innovate with machine learning, and then really it's turned into a sort of let's improve the foundations, take a step back, and then look at where we can use this to add value. So don't be afraid to change your goals if you do see another opportunity. And the second example we've got is we encourage all our employees to come up with ideas. Is like pretty much every organization, you'll have loads of bright people in there, you'll have some real good talent, and it's how do you get them to come up with ideas? I mean, a lot of people are very tech savvy now. So our health and safety manager has implemented several improvements through technology to our health and safety processes. One of the most recent ones, we've just been doing some linking of teams to our visitor booking in system. So when they sign in on the iPads, they're going through all the COVID questionnaires, the forms, and then it's automatically alerting through Teams the host. So yeah, we look at this at every area and really just try and figure out, is it going to add value, and just try not to do too much.
Yeah, great examples. How do you manage that digital transformation piece and the innovation element while also trying to support business as usual activities at the same time?
Yeah, with some challenges, Dave, I think.
Everyone has that. Yeah.
You can see me, I'd be smiling now. As stated earlier in our industry, efficiency is key to our success. Being really honest, we're quite lean from a delivery perspective. So I keep coming back to, we've got to be really efficient and reliable in our foundational processes so that we can spend most of our time on delivery of the initiatives that add value. So it's really difficult when you've got a lean team. So you've got to look for good vendor partnerships. I'm fortunate, I've got a pretty good vendor support network within Northwood that we bring in additional knowledge and run some processes through them, which again frees up my team to focus on application outcomes, process outcomes. Obviously, we automate as much as possible, and again, a bit cliche, we're just trying to earn the right to focus on the value add initiatives, because when you're not firefighting or you're not spending ages running infrastructure, you should really be focused on improving a business outcome, and that's what we've done. Some of the basic principles of good project and program management come into play here, right? Ensuring we've got the right access to resources when needed at all levels. I can't stress this enough as well. Too many initiatives fail due to not providing sufficient quality resources to the projects and not having enough focus on the change management principles. It's not easy. I'll probably make it sound easy. It's not, but that time spent up front positioning the change and effort to make it stick is huge. So yeah, just in summary there is keep doing the basics right, automate where possible, and just try and free up as much time. And then really then you can start to work on what are the other initiatives that can really add value.
So you mentioned value. So that to me is really important. And how do you go about communicating that value when you're talking with the board about the value of technology? Yeah, how do you demonstrate those key factors required?
Yeah, too easy to fall into the trap and use all the buzzwords of digital, Dave. Yeah, I mean, I've seen too many presentations which hit a CEO straight away with blockchain, AI, cloud, etc. And for me, again, back to basics, understanding the business priorities, yeah, and then positioning some of those relevant technologies that can improve the business outcome. And the language bit is quite key. So use relevant use cases to show how tech can improve profitability or take out real risk or just enable new insights. I mean, let me clear, most people want to use the technology. It's just got to try and make sure it's relevant. I mean, talk openly about the opportunities that may be relevant to your businesses. I mean, I started my journey with Northwood with a whole day on what digital means for us. And again, I keep coming back to this hold the toilet roll up. Is what does digital business mean for us when we make toilet roll? And that day laid the foundation for the journey we're on. Yeah, just make the opportunity real, ensure the foundational pieces are understood. And again, people make it happen, not the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. So what has been your career highlights to date? And what are you most proud about so far in your career?
Dave, I'd like to think I've made a difference in all the organisations that I've worked in and all the projects I've been involved in. I mean, first and foremost, right, there's nothing more satisfying than seeing people and teams succeed professionally and personally. I mean, the satisfaction we get as leaders when you see team members succeed is second to none, right? I mean, people I've had the pleasure of working with have gone on to make real differences in organisations and society. People have been promoted, they've gone on to take big roles. I am humbled to have been recognised for making a difference, and I've been fortunate I've managed to forge a leadership career in technology. I mean, I go back to some of those decisions I made early on to work in London, laid the foundations of my career. I think coming from that sort of end user background and perspective, I've tried to keep that in mind all my times in my career. And for those that don't know, I've just accepted another exciting CIO role, and I'll continue to try and make a difference as I've done throughout my career. The foundations have been set at Northwood. I'm confident they will continue to get value from all the investments they've made.
Well, congratulations on your new role. My final question, what was that best bit of advice that you got during your career ascent? And what advice would you give to others who are starting out on that journey now?
I'm fortunate to have worked with some great leaders in my career, Dave, and I continue to learn from them and my network. And be honest with you, I've always had my own views on my own executive presence and what this really means. I do sort of have a tendency to suffer from imposter syndrome at times, and my style of leadership is me. And one of the global CIOs I work for used the phrase, and again, a bit embarrassed to say this, but it said, "Don't underestimate the Boardman effect." And the feedback really being actively encouraged to be myself. So this has stuck with me in all the roles I've had, and I can't pretend to be anybody else. So be yourself, act with integrity, and listen. I mean, it helps in all aspects of life, really, not just your job. So for those starting the journey, I would offer the following. I mean, listen, right? First and foremost, listen. Find out what it means for people or processes using technology. You can learn so much. In my case, at 2 a.m. on a factory floor, of what the operator thinks of tech is a great insight. So really listen to the sort of heartbeat of your organisation. Do the basics really well. Hopefully I've hammered home this message in this podcast. Do it really well. Get the foundations in place, and I pretty much guarantee you opportunities will quickly follow. Act with integrity and ask for help when needed. There's so much talent out there. There's such great networks we can learn from. Be humble, and to conclude, be yourself.
Absolutely great advice and really, really good career insights as well. So, thank you so much, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today, and I'm sure our audience will also really enjoy the career stories that you've shared with us today.
Thanks, Dave. Really enjoyed it. Hope people get something out of it.
Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and stay tuned for more inspiring tech leaders.